Alright guys, I'm back again. This video is about 2 years from my initial video about the Leaf, and this will be my last drive in it. I'm turning it back in, and I wanted to make this video just to kind of explain my reasonings behind why I'm turning it in. In my last video, I'd had it for about 2 weeks, maybe a month or so. Anyway, let's just get going. I'm actually driving to the Nissan dealer now, so I'll record the video as I go along. So, 2 years. I've had this car 2 years. In general, it has been an excellent car. I have not had any problems with the vehicle mechanically or electrically wise the whole entire time I've had it. The only time I went to the dealer was at the 1 year mark, and they basically rotated the tires and checked the battery levels and fluid levels and whatnot. But that's it. So I'm turning it in for a couple of reasons. I guess the two biggest reasons is, one, at least in my area, the charging infrastructure in this area has deteriorated greatly. When I first got the car 2 years ago, there was quite a few charging stations available. There was two superchargers, the 480 volts supercharger quick chargers available. Both of them were free at the time, and there were a multitude of level 2 chargers. The 240 volt chargers around all the Cracker Barrels had them. So I never felt like, even on the occasion when I got home from work one day and for some reason I forgot to plug it in, and woke up the next morning and had to go to a charging station to get to work, I never had any worries that I wouldn't be able to charge up. However, about 2 months ago, that situation happened where I woke up and I forgot to plug in the car, and so I went to the closest charging station. It had 2 level 2 chargers on it, and both of those were malfunctioning. Went to the next closest one, which was a supercharger, and somebody had busted the screen out of it. And then I went to the other supercharger in the area, and that gas station said that it broke like 6 months ago, and there was no plans on fixing it. And at this point, I had about 9 miles left before I ran out of juice. So I had basically had to go to the Nissan dealer and plug in there at their level 2 charger, and had to sit there for about 3 hours to where I had enough charge to get to work and get back home. And that right there was huge in my mind. If you're going to have a electric vehicle in a particular given market area, you've got to have the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure behind it. And it's for my particular area, it's just not there. And in fact, the infrastructure that was there has deteriorated to the point to where, unless you have a level 2 charger in your house, it's just not feasible. So that was one point that really got me. The other point, and probably the most important, is range anxiety. 99.9% of the time, I did not have range anxiety. And even that other small percentage wasn't really anxiety. It was just the simple fact that I had the knowledge that if I had to say I had to go to work, and with the current charge the way it is, even at 100% charge, I would not be able to go to work, go to my work, and then go to my wife's work, and basically get anywhere else. So that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. It was just the simple fact that I just could not get in the car and go somewhere. In an emergency situation. I'm not talking about like planning a trip, or because people do that. They plan out trips between different charging stations and whatnot. I'm talking about like an emergency situation. If something absolutely came up to where I had to, if something happened at my wife's work, or my brother broke down somewhere and he had nobody else to call. Just the simple fact that I could not get in my car, in my vehicle, and go to them. That was always just stuck in the back of my head, that it was a limitation. What's the answer to that? You look at the Teslas. They got 280 mile range on it. So that would certainly alleviate some of that. But not all of it. You still reach, what if you're in a Tesla and you're driving 150 miles and an emergency comes up to where you got to turn back around. You can't make it, and there's no charging stations in the area. So there again, you're stuck in that same situation to where you just simply can't use the vehicle in an emergency situation. Because before I got the Leaf, it was a regular event for me to go to work, and every now and then take a long lunch, drive down to my wife's work, have lunch with her, and drive back to work, and then back home. I couldn't do that with this car. So I think that's probably my biggest problem. What's the answer to that? Currently, as it stands right now, the only solution that I see is having a dual system. Not necessarily like I guess it is a hybrid, but not like the Prius. More like the Volt. In fact, the 2016 Chevy Volt is a very interesting car, because with the new upgrades they're doing to the batteries and whatnot, you're looking to get, I believe, it's around 45 miles of complete electric the supercharger, if you're down, or 480 volts, if you're down to, 10% battery, you pull up to a supercharger and you gotta still sit there for 20 minutes to get to a full charge. Now, granted, it's 20 minutes and you're back at full charge, but still, nobody wants to sit around at a charging station 20 minutes, especially if, say you're running late for work. You don't want to have to go and sit 20 minutes at a charging station. So the technology has got to be developed to where the charging of the system, of the batteries, is much more efficient. I'm no engineer. I don't know anything about the technology behind that, if that's feasible. Maybe there's going to be a different kind of battery developed for that to take place. I don't know. But the infrastructure has to be there. A charging station would have to be almost just as accessible as a normal gas station for people, I believe, to feel confident enough to take a vehicle like the Leaf on an extended road trip, and be able to charge up within a reasonable amount of time, say 10 minutes max, to go from 10% charge to full charge. But I don't honestly see that happening in the near future. Maybe there's locations out there. I know there's a lot of Leafs out in California, Los Angeles. From what I hear, from what I heard throughout the years that I had the vehicle, the charging infrastructure out there was much more prevalent than it is here. So there's probably a little bit less worry. I even heard that parking garages where people worked had EV stations in them, so that you're driving to work, plug your car in. That's nowhere apparent here. There's a couple of places that do have EV charging stations. Green Life is one of them, but they're level 2 chargers. So far as I know, there's only one 480 volt charger in this entire area, and that's at Sears. And like I said before, last time I went to, somebody had punched out the LCD screens so that the touch screen didn't work. But anyway, that's the main reasons why I'm turning in the vehicle. What would keep me from turning in the vehicle at this point? I couldn't see a reason, because it would always be in the back of my head that using this as a primary vehicle, it just wouldn't be. I just don't think it could be possible for myself, because it would just always be in the back of my head that I would not be able to go somewhere if an emergency came up. So that's the big reason. Now, as far as the vehicle, the way it's performed over the last 2 years, like I said, it's been a fantastic vehicle. Great. I think I'm gonna go around. Looks like the freeway's backed up. So overall, it's been a great vehicle. I've not had any single problem out of it. The way it drives, the way it handles, is phenomenal. I've already got a replacement vehicle, obviously, since I'm turning this vehicle in today. I've got a Jeep Grand Cherokee that we purchased, and going and driving that thing as opposed to driving this is a big change in basically driving style. This guy gonna let me over. accelerator in this vehicle as opposed to a gas. And I think I even mentioned that in my previous video, in my video 2 years ago, was the way this car accelerates. It's completely linear. There's no hesitation in when you put your foot on the accelerator and the car responding. Whereas, most gas vehicles, there's going to be some kind of hesitation while the car gears down or whatever, while it changes gears. So yeah, I mean, it's going to take some getting used to going back to a gas vehicle. So I figured I would be at the Nissan dealer by now, but I'm having to go the long way. So overall impression of the car for the last 2 years, it's been a great car. It's been very dependable. I never felt in danger at any point driving this car. It handles well. It's just that for my area, and because of the limitations of the charging of the batteries, things such as that, and the limited range, I just don't think that, for me at least, it's the right car for me. I would prefer to go with, based on what's out there, what's available right now, I would go with, if you had to have some kind of electric vehicle or wanted some kind of electric vehicle, and I would have no, there would be no hesitation for me to look at a new 2016 Chevy Volt. If I wanted to go that route, I got the Jeep Grand Cherokee as well, just because we may be needing it to tow a jet ski or something like that in the future. So, but as just a daily driver, the Volt would be absolutely fantastic. So I would have no hesitation going back to an electric vehicle for a daily driver, so long as it had a backup power source. And it was one other thing that I forgot to mention, and this actually, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. And it is a pretty big point. When I said that the car performed great, never let me down. However, there is one issue that I had with the way this car behaved, and it's not necessarily the car's fault. But if you plan on driving a Leaf in very cold temperatures, and I'm talking, I'm talking below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and especially if it gets down to like 8, 5, which it did this year. I think at one point I woke up one morning and it was like 2 degrees, and I had to drive to work. The batteries in this car, they drain so much quicker in cold weather, and I knew that was an issue out there even before I got this vehicle. I'd read about people, complaining about the cold weather battery life, and I just, and for the most part, it was never an issue. Like, if it's around 35, 30 degrees, it doesn't seem to be that big an issue. But when it gets down to, like I said, below 20 degrees in the single digits, the car's range just plummets. For example, the day when I woke up and it was 2 degrees, 5 degrees outside, I had my normal 100% charge, and I had my normal, 85, 89 mile range. Well, as soon as I pulled out of my driveway, went down my little neighborhood street, and got to the freeway, and that's roughly about 3 miles, the range had dropped roughly 25 miles. Uh, and it's because the car is recalculating the distance based on the temperature outside. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's just recalculating it, and it's the battery charge really is still the same, but it definitely is. I would say during those extremely cold days, whereas I used to get 85 total miles of range, I would be lucky to get 50. And like I said, that's with extremely low temperatures. But that's a big issue in my mind. To have a 30, 35 mile drop in your range, because it's cold outside. And luckily, I live in northern Georgia, so those kinds of days were very far and few in between. I would say throughout the year, I probably had to deal with that maybe 4 or 5 times a year. But on those days, once I realized that it really did drop that quick, I had to drive extremely conservative. Eco mode on. A lot of the times on those really, really cold days, I basically turned the heat off and basically froze to death, because the heat draws so much power from the battery. So, I had to drive very conservatively just to be able to get to work and back. And so work and back was about 20 miles each way, so about 40 miles. So driving my normal way, and I'm not an aggressive driver by any means, but driving, I don't usually use the eco mode. So driving like that during those cold days, I think you'd be very hard pressed to get over 50 miles. So that was another huge issue. I probably didn't think about it because today it's like 75 degrees, so didn't really come to mind. But yeah, so the cold weather, battery life, it is an issue. If you plan on driving this car when you got excuse me, my wife is calling me. So I'm almost at the dealer now. Hope you guys got some good information as far as experiences that I've had over the last 2 years. Again, if you have any other comments or questions that I didn't kind of cover in this video, feel free to send me a message or put it in the comments down below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching.